My mother always made me play hide and seek with her. It was just her and me, and we played at night. Each time, without failure, she told me to ignore her during the game. She told me that she would purposefully try to trick me, but, you know, if you really wanted to trick somebody, why tell them anything? We played in the park. I thought this was normal. I knew other families didn't do this, but at the same time, I thought there was nothing wrong with us doing it. I like the park after all. During the night the air was so fresh, and it was silent, and the trees seemed larger than usual. She counted down from 100, giving me ample time to run away. My general competitiveness always made me run away and as far away as I could. I'd find some space behind many trees, and I'd lie down. The park was large, but somehow my mother would always manage to walk past me at least 3 times in those 20 minutes. I'd always hear her speaking as she walked past me. "Come out, Clara. Clara, please come out. I'm sick of this stupid game, Clara, it's cold and I just want to go home." I ignored her. When we first started with the games, I'd been foolish enough to leave my hiding spot. My mother's face immediately turned into one of fury. She'd walk up and grab me tightly by the shoulder as she scolded me relentlessly. "I told you not to listen to me. Didn't I?" She would drag me back to the car, and ignore me until the next day, when we played. I didn't know why she did it. After I'd stopped listening to her during the 20 minutes of game time, it would no longer trick me. I knew she was lying, and it simply seemed like a waste of breath and energy to keep calling out for me. She got angry when she found me too. The park was a huge place, and if she hid somewhere I would never find her, but somehow my mother was excellent at tracking me down. It was like she sniffed me, and hunted me down. Instead of getting angry at me, she got disappointed. She'd sigh loudly, and her eyes would tear up, before she'd dejectedly walk to the car. That gave me the worst feeling ever, filling me with inadequacy. One time, she found me after only 2 minutes, and she broke down sobbing. I didn't get it. I felt a huge urge to win. I needed it, so I started to get creative. I hid myself in the bushes. I'd change my clothing to be more green and black and generally more inconspicuous. I got high up in trees, so it would be difficult to see me from the ground. I learned how to stay still, really, really, still. And when I won, my mother would give me a smile. It wasn't a smile of happiness, or a smile of pleasure. It was more a relieved smile, but I felt so proud when I saw it. We'd go home, and I'd have an easy time falling asleep. Then my father came. One day, when I came back from school, I saw him talking to my mother. He was almost never home. Actually, I'd seen him twice in my entire life, and my mother never really spoke about him. He was really just a stranger to me. I noticed the expression on my mother's face immediately. It was pale, white, shaking, eyes wide. I couldn't hear what he was saying, so I got closer and towards them. Of course, their conversation stopped just as I did it. When my father stopped speaking, the expression on my mother stayed the same. He turned to me and smiled in a wolfish way. It made me recoil away with disgust. He sneered. He fucking sneered. I thought it was normal, that was how my classmates acted after all. Later that same day, when my father was off in the toilet, my mother got close to me and whispered, "Don't come out. Not even after 20 minutes." My father got really energetic right before bedtime. I thought we'd skip the whole hide and seek thing. My mom looked really sick, and looking at the clock, she said, "Let's take a trip to the park." I immediately noticed that she didn't mention hide and seek. "Why?" my father asked. "Why not, get some fresh air maybe?" "Fine," he said. "I am active anyway." What the hell did he mean by that? Mom told me to change with a certain look, and I caught what she meant immediately. Put on hiding clothes. After doing it, we got into TH car and we drove to the park. My mother was silent the entire way but my father hummed. We walked together in the park for a while, my dad mumbling about work. I don't remember much of it. Honestly, it didn't sound like any job I'd ever heard. Then, suddenly my mother pointed at a tree in the distance. I noticed that it was the same tree she'd found me hiding behind the last time she'd caught me. These trees get so old. Then, they die. It's a shame they're stuck in place, unable to get away from the virus. She was saying, "Get away and hide." Death is the way of all living things, Dad said. No need to fear it. I think I saw a squirrel in the tree, I said. I'm going to go check it out. I disappeared into the forest I'd grown well acquainted to. I got behind a hill, before changing direction and moving away. I made sure to try to move on the spots that wouldn't leave a mark. I needed to get far away before they noticed something was up. I thought about climbing a tree and hiding there, or about diving into a couple of bushes. Trees were only effective if people didn't check. Bushes worked great, but you'd have a small, if no, view of your surroundings. I chose the bushes, jumping into them, and trying to control my breath. After a couple of minutes, I heard my parents walking in the distance. "Clara," Dad shouted. "Where are you, sweetheart? If you're hurt, please say something and we'll help." "Clara," Mother said. "Clara, can you hear me, darling?" My heart beat faster. I knew for a fact that I shouldn't leave the bushes. That was the absolute worst thing that could happen. I kept my breathing under check as they moved further and further away from me. Then, they came back. "Please, Clara, your dad isn't dangerous, please come out." "Clara, please, I need to get going soon, please come out." "Clara," Mom said. "Where are you?" "Stop this silly nonsense," Dad said. Their voices eventually faded out. I stayed there, in the same position, for nearly a whole hour. My body started to ache, and I could feel insect crawling around on the back of my leg. I really wanted to leave this position. I heard a stick snap in the distance. It came from behind me. I hadn't heard their voices at all, had they just stopped speaking. That terrified me, and I felt I needed to turn around and get a view, but I knew that would give me away. "Clara, stop with this silly nonsense, come out." I was entirely silent. "Clara, please come out." Her voice was turning more and more desperate. More guttural. Fortunately, it was what seemed to be around 70 meters away from me. But she was approaching. "Clara," Mom said. "I'm getting tired. I just want to go home, eat, and sleep." I stayed silent as the voice grew louder. She was approaching me. "I know you're in the area. It's only a moment of time before I find you. I will skin you, ha ha. I'll start with your forearms, peeling off your skin with a dull knife, just like peeling back cheese. I wager there'll be lots of blood coming out. And screaming. I won't be able to focus, but that's alright. I can always switch to your other arm." She came closer. "You won't like it." "I certainly wouldn't, but I'm not as stupid and fucking disgusting as you are, Clara. No. I'm glad I'm not a creature of filth like you. The only good you can serve is by being in my belly. By fueling me. I'll find you." The voice was only 20 meters away. "You'll regret not coming out." 10 meters. "You know, I don't eat the bones. They get stuck in my throat, but I can't leave them. I'll probably take them home with me, and suck on them. They have a good taste, you know. It'll be perfect." 2 meters. She giggled. Did she find me? Oh no. I debated whether I should stay still and hope for the best or if I should look back. My fear was killing me, and it had to know, but I know looking would make noise. No. I had to stay still. "I know where you are," she said. "Fuck." But then, she began walking away from my spot. "I'll suck on your eyeballs before swallowing them. They're better whole, and they're always wet and squishy so they go down the throat easily. If not, there's always blood. Oh, a mouthful of warm blood. Is there a better feeling?" I stayed still for that entire night, even after I was certain that they'd gone away. It was only when the sun was above me, and I could hear other children, that I stood up. One child jumped back and shrieked. He must have gotten properly terrified. Then, I made my way back home. Dad wasn't there, but Mom was. She hugged me. I know that this sounds like the kind of advice to anyone left alone in the house at night, but this is different. It started a week ago. I was in bed, it had just turned 1 o'clock. I was scrolling on my phone while my wife Steph was asleep. I suddenly had a notification pop up at the top of my phone. Anyone with a video doorbell will be accustomed to this. Motion detected. I normally ignore it as it was either a car coming down the road or a person stumbling back home after a night out. Then the doorbell chimed. The notification followed, "There's a person at your front door." I opened the app, There sure enough was a young woman standing, clinging onto my door frame. I answered, "Hello, can I help you?" She came back immediately. "Please let me in, someone is chasing me." I told her to stay where she was and I would call the police. I heard her again, "Please let me in, he's going to hurt me, please hurry." At this point my wife woke up. She asked me what I was doing. As I put some clothes on ready to go downstairs, I said there was a woman at our door begging to come in as someone was chasing her. I was about to dial for the police when Steph opened the app. She said, "Babe, no one is there." We looked back on the motion history, both notifications were logged. I opened the first one, nothing but our front porch. I proceeded to the other notification, where someone had pressed the doorbell. There was my front porch, shrouded in darkness, but this time we could hear only my voice. Of course there was no response to my questions. I thought to myself, was I going crazy? My wife said it was late, I must have been half asleep and my mind was playing tricks on me. Even if that was right, it still didn't explain why we got the notifications. The next night we both sat binging a Netflix show in our living room. We must have lost track of time as it was nearly 1 in the morning. I went to check the back door was locked when my phone buzzed. I asked Steph whether she had the same. She had. I opened the app just as it notified me that someone had pressed the bell. We both quickly opened the live view. Stood at our door, a child. The young boy must have been no older than 8, the camera was in night vision which was black and white. The boy's face glowed, eyes piercing through my screen. I once again answered, "Hello, can I help?" The kid looked up at the camera. "Hi, my daddy broke down just up the road and his phone is dead. Can you please let me in, I need to use your phone." Me and Steph looked at each other, she shook her head at me. I replied to him, "I can call someone out for you or maybe the police can help." The boy then seemed to turn, his voice now had anger to it. "Open the door, I need help. Are you really going to let me stay out here all alone?" His story had changed. I went back after swallowing my own fear. "Stay there, I will get help." This time I called the police, they came around 20 minutes later. By this point no one was around, we had seen the boy walk off around the corner 5 minutes after I had got off the phone. The officers checked our road and the surrounding area. They found no people, not even the odd car driving around. We both tried to show them the app but obviously, there was nothing there. The 2 officers were understanding and seemed to believe us. They gave us the department's direct number and told us to call them if anything happens again. We went to bed that night scared and confused. We didn't understand what or why this was happening to us. The next day we decided to get an early night. We made sure everything was locked and the house secure. We both fell asleep early. I was woken up at just gone 1 o'clock to the sound of 2 sets of buzzing from my phone. I ignored these, I just rolled over and went back to sleep. When I looked at my phone in the morning I opened up the doorbell app. The video playback showed nothing, but I could hear scratching for about 2-3 seconds after the apparent press of the bell. I went downstairs and checked the door. 3 sets of 4 deep scratches went down my front door. The anxiety hit me like a tidal wave going throughout my body. I now feared the night ahead of us. 2 nights ago we both had decided to stay up, we were going to put an end to this. We were on edge in our own home and it just wasn't right. The minutes drew closer to the damn time, 1 o'clock. Then right on schedule, the notification started. I opened the app, now stood there one of the policemen. He was one of the officers that was with us the other night. I thought it was strange, it caught me off guard. Steph said that she will look out the window upstairs. We had both said earlier that one of us would look out the window to confirm if someone really was there. I answered the door. "Hello officer, can I help you?" He looked into the camera. "We have an update on the problem you have been having, can you please open the door?" I felt a sense of confliction come over me, this didn't feel right. I had watched enough police programs and dramas to know they usually have to report to places with another officer. The lack of any police cars also unnerved me. "Sorry officer, I'm sure you can understand the reluctancy to open the door due to our situation." He snapped back, "It's fine, I am an officer of the law and instructing you to please open up, I need to come in and update you." Now I knew something was wrong, his whole demeanor was now completely different to when we spoke 2 nights ago. I watched as his head looked upwards. I heard my wife scream the words, "Oh my God, his eyes. What the fuck?" I rushed up the stairs, my feet slipping as I ran. I saw Steph but she looked petrified. She stared at me blankly and said, "You need to let him in, he will help us. I uttered back, struggling to catch my breath. We can't, you know we can't. What did you see? What was wrong with his eyes? She tilted her head at me. Her eyes began to roll upwards. Let him in. Let him in. Her tone started to change. It was turning into a gravelly, rasping voice. Her face now full of anger as she screamed at me, let him in now. I grabbed her and shook her while shouting, Steph, listen to me, snap out of it. She looked back at me, dazed and confused. She said wearily, with tears in her eyes, I want to go to bed. I said, only if you are okay. She said she was fine and didn't know what happened. I checked the video feed once more. No one was there. It took me a few hours to fall asleep worrying about what happened to Steph. When I woke the next morning, Steph was gone, her phone and jewelry left on the bedside cabinet. I went downstairs and searched for her, but nothing. She wasn't in the house. I called the police department on the number I was given. I spoke to the partner of the policeman that was at my door. I told him everything that happened and that my wife had gone missing. They told me the officer that was stood at my door 8 hours earlier was on leave. He flew out on holiday yesterday morning. It couldn't have been him. In the hours ahead, a search team was assembled and I joined them in searching the local area. There was no sign of her. It's now 11 p.m. I'm sitting alone in my living room, my head now full of fear and radiating pain. I just want my Steph home. I just want normality back. Here it comes, 0:59. 3, 2, 1 o'clock. The notifications came through. I opened the app. Steph was at the front door. I was almost half expecting it. I said, where were you, honey? She looked into the camera. I was taken, but I escaped and I'm here now. Let me in and I will tell you all about it. I took a deep sigh. Okay, I will be there in a minute, babe. What can I do? She is my wife. I have nothing without her. I wrote all of this throughout this evening, hoping for some sort of closure, maybe even a happy ending to this horrible experience. I guess now it will just be a piece of evidence on what happened to us both. I need to go answer the door now. My wife is home.